On June 9, 2026, Queen Camilla had an incredible moment at Buckingham Palace. On the surface, it appears that all of her struggles have finally paid off. Wearing the Grenadier Guards brooch, which actually belonged to Queen Elizabeth II, she is standing in the gardens in this exquisitely tailored ensemble. She is also giving the 1st Battalion the colours. The soldiers are bowing. The drums are pounding. And she's essentially the embodiment of everything that says, "I won. I made it. I'm the Queen." However, this is the aspect that no one is really discussing, and it's actually what makes the whole thing so fascinating. Camilla is genuinely living in a state of silent terror behind that flawless exterior. I'm not exaggerating either. Consider what she truly had to go through to reach that point. She was the most despised woman in Britain for decades, and I mean decades. We are discussing a character who was portrayed as the antagonist in the tale of Princess Diana. Her reputation was ruined by the tabloids. The public detested her. She had to literally spend half of her life fighting her way back to a place where people would just put up with her because she was the outsider and the person who was said to have ruined the fairy tale. She would not even be referred to as Queen when she eventually wed Charles in 2025. The compromise they reached was that she would be Prince's consort. That was the extent of the British public's disapproval. However, Camilla is a very astute strategist. She persisted. She was the ideal wife for years, keeping quiet, carrying out her responsibilities, and fully complying with all the requirements set forth by the organisation. And it was successful. Eventually, Queen Elizabeth changed her mind and declared Camilla to be Queen Consort during her Platinum Jubilee. And Camilla eventually received the throne when Charles ascended to the throne in 2023. In fact, she did it. From being a national outcast, she rose to become the most powerful woman in the entire realm. When you consider it, that is truly crazy. Why then is she not ecstatic? Why isn't she simply relishing this enormous triumph? Because she is aware of something that we are all beginning to understand. The end of her time at the top is drawing nearer every day. You see, in her mid-70s, Camilla ascended to the throne. Unlike Elizabeth, she did not rise to prominence at a young age. She was aware that her window was closing when she came to power. The Grenadier Guards ceremony does not mark the start of a new era. You're staring at someone who is acutely conscious of her time constraints. The fact that her husband, not her, is the king, casts a shadow over every important event, including state banquets and military presentations. For her, everything changes the instant something happens to Charles. She is essentially marginalised when she transitions from being the reigning queen to the Dowager Queen. The power goes out completely. The authority completely disappears. The military units, the ceremonial positions, and the pivotal role on the international scene. It is all given to the next person. William and Catherine can help with that. This is the point at which Camilla's anxiety starts to materialise. Because William and Catherine aren't merely standing by in the wings. While Camilla is still officially in charge, they are actively taking on the role of the emotional centre of the monarchy. That must be annoying. Ancient military titles are not necessary for William and Catherine to appear respectable. To demonstrate their importance, they don't require ornate state ceremonies. The media goes crazy whenever Catherine appears anywhere. William's actions instantly make headlines around the world. No matter how hard Camilla works or how flawless her appearance is, she will never be able to match their natural, effortless popularity. Camilla's fame is completely controlled. In contrast to William and Catherine's, it is artificial. She lacks an emotional bond with the public, but she does possess the formal mechanism of power. Because Charles is the king and is respected, people put up with her. However, people genuinely adore Catherine. That is an entirely different circumstance. Every time Camilla is in public, she is acutely aware of that distinction. What happens when William eventually ascends to the throne is probably the most terrifying part for Camilla. Because William was a child when his mother's problems occurred, he recalls the Diana period. Growing up, he witnessed this very institution destroy his mother. He now views Camilla as an essential component of the same organisation that harmed his mother. Do you really think William will want to continue elevating Camilla and her family after he ascends to the throne? Do you believe she will play a significant part in the modern monarchy he wishes to establish? Most likely not. Camilla must deal with that reality on a daily basis. She has accomplished everything that was said to be impossible for her. She also has to deal with the ongoing awareness that the person who will succeed her husband does not owe her anything and may actively seek to diminish her power. Charles is currently protecting her, but that won't last forever. In her role, nothing is permanent. She is aware that the entire situation is based on borrowed time. The fact that a whole younger generation of royals is emerging who will be flawless, scandal-free, and represent this new beginning that people are genuinely yearning for complicates the situation even further. These individuals, such as James Alexander, the Earl of Wessex, were literally brought up to steer clear of controversy. They are pure. They are descended from the Windsor family without any of Camilla's baggage. The public doesn't want to honour a queen who battled for legitimacy, so that poses an existential threat to her. They wish to honour queens who are born with inherent legitimacy. Since Camilla is under more than just time pressure, let's actually discuss what her position entails, because that's where things get really murky. Most people are unaware of the particular institutional vulnerability she possesses. It's also the most brutal aspect of her whole predicament. Your power in a British monarchy is based on two factors. You need public support and constitutional legitimacy, both of which Camilla possesses. And she's really having trouble in that second section. She has the title, even though she is the queen. On paper, she is in charge, but the love isn't there. Camilla is physically holding this position of total authority when you watch the Grenadier Guard ceremony. She inherited a military position that Queen Elizabeth had taken away from Prince Andrew. The best soldiers in Britain are saluting her. However, she is not making any cultural or emotional demands. Because they admire King Charles, the public embraces her. That's all. That is the whole basis of her power. The entire structure falls apart the instant Charles isn't present to uphold her legitimacy. Although she currently wears institutional armour, it isn't really hers. The king owns it, and the only reason it keeps her safe is because he wears it as well. This makes her daily life extremely difficult. She cannot afford to make a single error. Unlike Catherine or William, she doesn't have a real emotional connection with the public that would shield her if something went wrong. So she can't have a terrible interview, a PR disaster, or even a moment where she appears weak. People genuinely like them, so even if they made a mistake, they would likely be forgiven. There is nothing to rely on in the event that Camilla makes a mistake. Tolerance is contingent. She must always be flawless for it to work. She's not young either. She should be playing this extremely demanding role at the highest level, but she's getting close to her 80s. She had to be flawless, calm, and commanding for the Grenadier Guard ceremony. She did it perfectly. However, when you're that age and you're doing it with the knowledge that it's only temporary, that is exhausting. You are aware that you are in a race against time and will ultimately lose. Camilla probably thinks about what's actually going on in the royal court all the time. The balance of power is already changing. Long-term plans are being made by international diplomats, government officials, and media executives, and Camilla is not really part of those plans. She is viewed by them as a temporary tenant. William, Catherine, and the future are the focal points of their strategies. Camilla witnesses this taking place. She is aware that her influence is not as great as it seems. Even though she is still the Queen in theory, her ability to actually make things happen begins to deteriorate the moment people decide that William is the real future. She must therefore put in twice as much effort to stay relevant. She can't rely solely on her titles. She must continually make her presence known and remind everyone that she is important and deserving of attention. She is accepting these prominent military positions because of this. She is taking part in these antiquated state rituals because of this. It goes beyond custom. She made the calculated choice to become so ingrained in the existing system that she is difficult to ignore or discount. However, that tactic is dangerous and draining, particularly for someone her age. And this is probably what scares her the most. It becomes increasingly clear that her power is fleeting as she struggles to prove it. The ceremony itself is magnificent, historic, and lovely. But it also acts as a reminder that this is a brief moment. What happens after the soldiers march away and the drums stop? She returns to controlling her role, maintaining her relevance, being flawless, and making no mistakes. Catherine is a symbol of an entirely different kind of power. Nothing requires Catherine to fight for. When she arrives, everyone is thrilled. Her movements are covered by the media as if she were a movie star. The cameras naturally follow Catherine when she and William are in the same area as Camilla and Charles. That's not because Camilla is being disparaged by others. Catherine simply has a genuine, organic, gravitational pull. Camilla lacks charisma and true public affection, but she has institutional weight. Camilla does not see a stepdaughter when she looks at Catherine. She perceives a threat to her existence. She is seeing someone who has everything Camilla battled for decades. Catherine also just naturally possesses it. Catherine did not have to put up with being demonized in public. She didn't need to persuade others to embrace her. She was adored as soon as she joined the royal family. The contrast will only get more pronounced now that Catherine is recuperating from her health problems and returning to the spotlight. The Princess of Wales's immense fame and charm will overshadow Camilla. Additionally, Catherine will have all the authority and love that Camilla was never able to obtain when William ascends to the throne. And she will have it in a way that renders Camilla's valiant triumph utterly meaningless. The fact that Camilla's current dominance is essentially a historical anomaly is the most perverse aspect of the whole situation. The position of Queen Consort typically goes to a member of the direct bloodline or to a person who married into the institution at a young age and had time to assimilate. Camilla didn't either. She was introduced as the complex former mistress who required public rehabilitation over time. She is now sitting in a position that was never meant to be hers, and because she is aware of how delicate it is, she is afraid of losing it. Camilla's entire world instantly shifts when Charles eventually dies, which he will since he is a human being. Her constitutional role vanishes. Her appointments to the military vanish. Her place on the world stage disappears. She becomes a dowager queen, which is essentially a polite way of saying that she is marginalized. Additionally, the royal court will quickly adjust to William and Catherine, as well as the upcoming generation. In the Windsor story, Camilla will be relegated to the background as a historical anecdote. She is acutely aware of everything. She's not living in denial about her circumstances, for example. She is aware that the organisation she overthrew is meant to outlive her. She is aware that as soon as she leaves the stage, the generation that is waiting in the wings is ready to totally undermine her influence. That isn't paranoia. That is merely comprehending the real workings of the monarchy. And given what she's truly going through on a personal level, that knowledge must be extremely isolating. She battled for 50 years to reach her current position. 50 years of being the antagonist in everyone's story, of tabloid devastation and of public hatred. She put up with it all because she wanted to be queen and because she loved Charles. And at last, she arrived. In fact, she did it. She overcame the establishment that attempted to bar her. She penetrated the barrier of public animosity. She accomplished something that was, quite literally, unattainable. And now that she's accomplished it, she must accept that it's fleeting, borrowed, and only effective while Charles is still alive and she continues to be flawless. Everything falls apart the instant something changes. As she looks down from the summit of the mountain, she notices that the ground is changing beneath her feet. Given everything she had to go through to get there, that is a very depressing situation to be in. Interestingly, Camilla isn't even able to discuss this with anyone. She can't be open about her anxieties. She can't acknowledge her fear. The entire structure becomes unstable the instant she exhibits weakness. She must constantly exude complete assurance and authority. She must be the unflinching queen consort who maintains her composure at all times. That is a huge psychological strain. Additionally, the public is continuously observing her in search of indications that she is having difficulties. Her circumstances have a dramatic irony that is hard to ignore, which is why we are all captivated by her. After putting in a lot of effort to gain access to the royal family's inner circle, she is now aware of how unstable her position is. That drama is captivating. People focus on her because of this. Despite being merely a conventional military ceremony, the Grenadier Guards ceremony attracted a lot of attention because everyone is aware that there is more going on beneath the surface. The fact that there is absolutely no scenario in which Camilla emerges from this with her legacy intact is another factor contributing to the fragility of the situation. Like, give it some thought. If Camilla remains queen for decades and Charles reigns for a long time, she will be linked to a period that is both transitional and retrogressive. She won't be viewed as a defining queen in and of herself, but rather as a member of the bridge generation. She becomes marginalized, and her influence vanishes if Charles passes away sooner. This is not a winning move. There is no way for her to be remembered as a victorious queen who maintained her position of authority. Her reign will be viewed by historians as a short, convoluted chapter. They will recognise that she achieved a noteworthy feat by restoring her public persona. They will acknowledge that she was tenacious and strategic, but they will also regard her as a transitional occupant of the throne. After that, Catherine's era will start, and people will genuinely celebrate Catherine's era. People will adore Catherine, want to write about her, and see her as a symbol of the future. From the standpoint of historical curiosity, Camilla will be the queen that people are interested in. More than anything else, that's probably what keeps her up at night. The erasure of her legacy while she is still alive, not the loss of power upon Charles's death. The awareness that the charisma and popularity of the next generation are gradually making everything she fought for obsolete, because William and Catherine don't need to do anything particularly noteworthy to be relevant. They simply exist, and people are concerned about them. When they appear, everyone takes notice. They don't have Camilla's convoluted past. They are not required to control public opinion or repair their reputation. They are simply adored by nature. Furthermore, Camilla's status as a natural beloved is far more valuable than anything she could ever accomplish through institutional positioning or cunning. In a strange way, the younger generation of royals, such as James Alexander, are even more dangerous because they are fresh starts. They're not old, they have no scandals, they stand for rejuvenation and hope. The people of Britain desire them. The younger royals are seen by the public as the monarchy's future. They see the past when they gaze at Camilla. The institution's emotional energy is already shifting away from Camilla, despite the fact that she is currently the literal queen. This concludes the paradox that characterizes Camilla's whole predicament. She has attained unprecedented institutional power, but her vulnerability has never been greater. Despite being the queen, she is totally reliant on King Charles to keep her position. She lacks the emotional mandate that would truly protect her, despite having all the formal authority in the world. In this moment of complete victory, she is standing atop the mountain, but she is aware that she is by herself. She is aware that things are changing. She is aware that those who are waiting to take her place have all the benefits and none of the drawbacks. One of the most iconic pictures of her reign will likely be the Grenadier Guard ceremony in June 2026. It was a perfect moment of institutional validation, but it was also a perfect example of how precarious and transient her reign position is. Because Camilla's position in the ceremony is transient, but the ceremony itself is timeless and eternal. Long after she is gone, the regiment will still exist. The customs will endure, but her contribution to them will be reduced to a historical footnote and a brief diversion from the larger story of the British monarchy. This is the reason this situation is so captivating. It has nothing to do with the military ritual or the ceremony. It's about witnessing someone who has at last achieved their goals, come to the realization that their desires are ultimately fleeting and meaningless. It's about recognizing the boundaries of what institutional power can truly provide. It's about realizing that some things are beyond your control, regardless of how hard you fight, how clever you are, or how flawless you become. One of them is time. Another is public affection. And perhaps the biggest burden Camilla bears is the awareness of those limitations.